All right, gatekeepers. This is a class that we have been needing a refresher on. For most of us, it's been about a year since we've gone over legal authorities and penal code, so I figured I'd put together a class and talk about this. As you guys know, this is important because we need to know what exactly we are and are not authorized to do legally to protect ourselves and to protect the church. This is more on why we need to know this. You're going to have folks that, especially if we have protesters, their favorite thing to say is, "I know my rights. I know the law." They probably don't, so we need to know it better than they do. A big thing that we need to keep in mind is that we are not peace officers; we are security officers. As security officers, our main duty really is to observe and report. However, the church actually hires us to protect the people and property at that church. And so that is what we do. If it is at church or is it a church function, we are protecting those people and we are protecting the church's property and those people's property. Um, peace officers are different. Uh, they're allowed to investigate things more than we are. They're allowed to apprehend. Um, if they hear word or have reasonable suspicion or probable cause something is happening, they're allowed to act. For us, if we're acting on anything, it has to be within our view or our area of operations. We have to see it happening before we can do something about it. Reasonable suspicion and probable cause, these are two definitions you need to know really, really well. The big difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Reasonable suspicion is everything together gives you a pretty good idea that something may be happening. So, for example, we walk up to a car in the parking lot, the windows are all smoked out, and we ask them to roll down the window. They roll down the window, and it reeks of weed. Uh, that is reasonable that we can be suspicious that they're smoking weed illegally in their vehicle. Probable cause is different because there are something has shown us that yes, this is actually happening. So, same situation, we approach the vehicle, but as we approach the vehicle, the guy rolls down the window and throws a joint out. Well, now we have witnessed the fact that he had possession of a marijuana joint. The vehicle is smoked out. It smells of marijuana. Now we have probable cause that says this dude was smoking marijuana in his vehicle. That is the difference. Is one, we can be suspicious that it's happening, but we don't really have a lot of articulable evidence. The other is we have pretty defined articulable evidence. I see this a lot at work when I have DWIs. The officers always want us to be able to say that we saw that person behind the wheel whenever they got into the accident, because that gives them probable cause to start searching the vehicle. You cannot do searches with just reasonable suspicion. You have to have probable cause, and so that is a big deal. Knowing the difference between those two. These are the basic rights. These are the Bill of Rights. You guys can go online and read all of these. A couple of these are extremely applicable to us as security guards. First Amendment, that's a big one. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech. We're exercising that, and we need to be respectful of people that also want to exercise their freedom of speech. So if we have protesters, um, they are allowed to protest. They could say whatever they want for the most part, but they have to do it on public grounds. So if they're across the street at Round Rock High School on the sidewalk and they want to say, bigot this and bigot that, and my body, my choice, they can do that all they want. As soon as they step onto our property, that's different. They can, if they are disturbing the peace on our property and they're saying things that offend our people, they cannot do that on private grounds. And so that's where we come in. That's where we're able to act. It's the same thing with the media. The media cannot come on to our private grounds and start videotaping things like that without our permission. Fourth Amendment, this is illegal searches and seizures, things like that. So that's another one you can read. This one doesn't apply a whole lot to us other than the fact that if for some reason we have a credible intelligence of a threat and we feel that there's something that may be happening, we do have the right to be able to search bags and purses as they're coming onto our facility. Um, when you carry a bag onto private property, your reasonable expectation of privacy of that bag is forfeited, um, because you have every opportunity to leave that bag in your vehicle. However, vehicles are considered kind of part of the castle law. That's part of your home and domain. If it is locked up, we cannot go opening doors and opening trunks to go looking for things. We can't search vehicles. The only thing that we can do is if something is in plain view, can we act? So if somebody drives onto our campus and we see a bomb in the front seat through the window, we could do something about that. If the bomb's in the trunk, we can't go opening the trunk looking for it. Use of force ladder. This is something that we talked about in the gatekeeper class. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about this because I want you guys to read this. I'm going to give everybody access to this PowerPoint so you can study it and learn some of this stuff. But this is also a very important thing to know very well, the difference between the different uses of force and what type of aggressor we use force on and what type of force we use for the different aggressors. This is a list of things that we can and cannot do with regards to use of force or deadly force. So again, read over this. There's always going to be questions, so you can always come and ask me, hey, what about this? The key thing to take away from this is we cannot use force just because we've been provoked verbally. So if somebody comes on campus and protests or does whatever, and they're like, "Come and get some," you can't go using force on them just because they said, "Come and get some." Even though technically they're inviting you to do it, you still can't do that. Also, we cannot provoke them. So you can't do the whole Dirty Harry thing. Go ahead, make my day. I dare you. I double dare you. Pulp Fiction thing. We can't do that to try and provoke them to act so we can use force. Also, kind of a weird one, we cannot use deadly force to prevent suicide or self-harm. We can use force, we just cannot use deadly force. Another thing to keep note of is the level of force that we are allowed to use changes in the nighttime. So if you look at that bottom bullet point under can do, we can use up to deadly force to prevent arson, burglary, robbery, basically felonies that are occurring during the nighttime. This is just more can do's, can't do's. The other key thing is we do not have a duty to retreat. This is in California, so we can stand our ground, and that is fine. We can use force to prevent somebody from escaping. If we're making a legal arrest, we can use force to prevent somebody from trying to escape. So if they're running away from us, we can tackle them and then place them under arrest. But we have to make the purpose and reason why we're making the arrest and using that force known kind of as we're doing it. If we are going to make an arrest, there's misdemeanors and felonies. If we are arresting for a misdemeanor, these two conditions must be met. It must be against the public peace, and it must be committed within our presence or view. So if somebody comes up to us and says, hey, this person is over there trying to break into my vehicle. If we go over there and we do not see them actively trying to break into the vehicle, we cannot go arresting them just because somebody said they were doing it. We can use verbal communication as that level of force to stop what's going on, but we cannot make an arrest unless we see that person actively committing the crime. This is a list of misdemeanors that are arrestable or common ones. There's a lot more. You got to get into the penal code to find out what they all are. The big ones that I kind of see happening at our church would be criminal trespassing, So we had an emotionally disturbed person that we filed a criminal trespass warning against. If that person comes onto our campus without permission, we can arrest them for a misdemeanor. Criminal mischief. Some ding dongs from Round Rock High School decide they want to come and start spray painting our property. We can bust them for criminal mischief. And then, our protesters exposing themselves, that is something else that I could see possibly happening. If we arrest for a misdemeanor, 911 has to be called, and that person needs to be turned over to a peace officer immediately. I think the official verbiage is that within a reasonable amount of time, get the police coming immediately. We do not want to be misconstrued as holding this person against their will or making false arrests. So if we're arresting them for a misdemeanor, get them over to the police ASAP. Felonies must have one condition. They must have been committed in your presence or view. This is as a citizen's arrest or even as a security guard. We do not investigate. If it happens in our view, we see it happen, we can do something about it. Now, because we have a camera system, if the cameras pick it up happening, we see it happening, we're dispatching a security guard to stop it. We have proof that it happened. We can act if the cameras spot it happening because it's happening within our presence or view. However, going back to the story, if somebody runs up to you and says, this is happening, and you go over there and you don't see it, we can't act on it. This is a list of common felonies. A couple that could absolutely happen on our campus, especially if you've read some of the Concilium insights that I've sent out. Arson, theft, and burglary are things that happen fairly common on church campuses across the country. Aggravated assault, the big thing between aggravated assault is they're using a weapon of some sort. This can include using a fist against the head. Similar to our use of force ladder, if we're going to use hard, empty-handed techniques, we have to aim at the muscles. We cannot aim at joints or the head because that is considered deadly force. Deadly force doesn't necessarily mean it's going to kill somebody, but it will cause great bodily injury or serious bodily harm. So that is considered deadly force. So if we see that occurring, somebody goes and punches somebody in the face, that is aggravated assault. Some of the legal ramifications if we make an arrest. You have to know what exactly an arrest is. And so if you restrain or detain a person, depriving them of their free movement, meaning they don't feel they are free to go, that's an arrest. If you deprive their liberty by legal authority, saying you cannot go anywhere because I'm holding you for whatever reason, that's an arrest. If you take a person into custody without a warrant, which would be any time we're doing that, that is considered an arrest. If you make an arrest, you have to call police and turn it over to a peace officer immediately. There's two types of arrests, actual and constructive. Actual arrest is you're putting in handcuffs or you're getting hands-on with them and taking them into custody. A constructive arrest, they submit willfully and are free to go for the most part, but it's considered a constructive arrest if you block their freedom of movement in any way. So if they try walking away and you step in front of them and block them, you've just placed them under a constructive arrest. Again, get the police coming, let them handle the rest of that. The difference is whether or not you touch them. Arrest versus detainment. Arrest, their freedom has been limited. You must communicate that they are under arrest. If you don't communicate that, it's going to be considered a false arrest. You must communicate that they are under arrest. If your actions make them feel they are under arrest, they're under arrest. If they are not free to go, they are under arrest, so you have to communicate that to them. Detainment, they voluntarily respond to any questioning. They're free to go at any time. The only time we can technically detain somebody is if we are questioning them about a theft, and we can only do that for a reasonable period of time. So your line of questioning has to be, trying to point them towards, yeah, they were stealing something. Well, you can only question for a short amount of time. Again, this is where we want to get the police there because they can hold them for longer than we can. There's not a defined amount of time. It's just what a common person would be considered reasonable. So what I would define as reasonable is however long it takes for police to get there. Criminal liabilities of arrest. We cannot threaten physical harm or frighten people if they don't cooperate. So you can't say, hey, you need to stop doing that or I'm going to beat the crap out of you. That is intimidation. That's illegal. Excessive force. So if the person is just sitting with with their arms and legs crossed and they're like, I don't want to go, and you tell them to go and they don't go, and you just haul off and you kick them in the meaty portion of the thigh, that is excessive force. Possession of prohibited weapon. So if you're not authorized to carry a long gun by gatekeepers and you use a long gun on duty, that is possession of a prohibited weapon. If you are not cleared for OC and you use OC on somebody, prohibited weapon. And then false arrest. If the crime didn't happen in your presence or view, and basically if it didn't happen in your view and you arrest somebody, that's considered a false arrest. This is the fun part. Civil liabilities of making arrest. This is why we have gatekeepers. If the subject feels that they have been physically or emotionally harmed in any way, they are within their rights to sue us civilly and the church. So whatever snowflake wants to feel whatever they want to feel, if they feel they've been wronged, they can lawyer up and sue us. That is why we have gatekeepers, and that is why at this moment in time, right now, that we know of, only gatekeepers can use force. That's something I'm trying to get some legal clarification on due to some new laws that came out in September. But for right now, only gatekeepers can use force because we are authorized to do so, and we are covered by insurance civilly if we use force. The bottom line of all of this, use common sense. All right, don't use emotion to make your decisions. If you have protesters and they're spitting in your face and they're doing all this and that, the stuff that Antifa protesters like to do, you can't let your emotions get a hold of you and act that way. You have to use your brain and you have to use common sense. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up to some bad stuff. Always call for the police. All right, we are limited in our authorities. They have a lot more authority than we do. Call them. Crimes have to be committed in your viewer presence. So if you don't see it happen and our camera doesn't see it happen, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. And only use just enough force to gain compliance or to get the person restrained. Do not go over the top, and this goes back to using common sense and not letting your emotions get the best of you. You have to only use just enough, and once they're compliant or once they're restrained, that's it. No more force. That's all I got, folks. Again, I'm going to email this PowerPoint out to you so you can study it some more. All of this comes from our Level 2 manual that you got emailed out before you went to the Gatekeepers course. So always review that, stay up to date on it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.